right, sixth graders, we are starting a brand new chapter today. We were learning about how to do volume last week, and I told you we would not be doing a chapter assessment on it. We don't really have enough time for that. I really wanted to get into a new chapter that you guys are going to need to at least be familiar with. And so we're kind of jumping volume. You guys did really well on the homework at this point, so I think that it's okay to move forward. I know that this is really fast paced right now. I'm really sorry about that, guys. We'll do the best we can. Okay. And yes, I'm wearing a robe. It is nighttime. I'm doing this tonight, and I'm cold, so basically I've given up at this point. So it is what it is. We are going to move into a chapter on ratios, rates, and percentages. Now, this is kind of a lengthy chapter because it involves using numbers and changing them from ratios to rates, then from those into percentages and back and forth in all different ways. And it can get a little confusing because you have to learn so many different ways to do things, and that's why it's a little bit longer. So I wanted to kind of get started in this while we have about 4 weeks left. So we're just going to be introducing you guys to it today. We're going to be talking about ratios and rates. Now, it might sound a little complicated just saying that, but once I explain what it is, it'll sound familiar to you because you actually use these in real life or have heard people talk this way. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities to each other. It can be the number of bananas you bought or cars in a parking lot or, you name it. It's just comparing two quantities together. The terms represent the items being compared. A ratio is read using the word to. Okay, so you're going to use the word to in there. So for example, we're going to start with just something very simple, and we're going to be comparing boys and girls. So for this first one, I'm reading from the top of page 278. If you want to follow along, I'm getting it right from there so that you guys can follow along with it. There are 4 girls to every 6 boys that play in the county soccer league. The ratio of girls to boys can be written 3 different ways. We can use it in word form, we can use it in ratio form, or we can write it in a fraction form. Now, that's a lot of talking, that's a lot of words, but it's really not that complicated. I'm going to show you here is a grid where we can show you how to compare things in word form, ratio form, and fraction form. So one thing to recognize or to remember when you're doing ratios, however you compare the things to each other, you have to write the numbers in that order, okay? So if you're comparing apples to oranges, you're not going to write the number of oranges first, then apples. That's not how you set it. So you have to compare the numbers in the right order that you're comparing. So for example, it says girls to boys. So in our little story here, there are 4 girls to every boy. So it says girls to boys. So we're going to want to write the number for the girls first and compare it to the number of boys second. So in word form, it is 4 to 6. Because remember, there are 4 girls to every 6 boys. So we would write 4 to 6. And that is the word form. So in ratio form, it's the same numbers you're using, but you have a little colon in between. 4 to 6. Now this has to do with ratio form, okay? This little symbol right there. That is taking the place of this word to. And you'll get, so anytime you see that, you know that they're comparing 2 numbers together, okay? So this ratio is 4 to 6. Even though it doesn't have the 2, that still means 2, okay? Now fraction form is writing a fraction. You're going to write your first number on the top, second number on the bottom. So it's 4 to 6 in fraction. So it all means the same thing. It's just written 3 different ways. Okay, so that's not super complicated. It's just a lot of new information for you guys. Okay, so this next one, we can compare girls to players. Now, we already know there's 4 girls. So how many total players? Well, you just add up girls and boys, and that's 10, right? So our total player number is 10. So we're now comparing girls to total players. So girls is 4, total players is 10. So for the word form, it would be 4 to 10. That means for the ratio, it will be 4 to 10 using the colon. And the fraction will be 4 over the 10 to make that fraction. Okay? Again, not complicated to write these numbers. They're just simple numbers. It's just knowing how you're writing them now, adding that number to, or sorry, that word to in if it's word form. Remembering that this is a colon, and that now stands for the ratio form there, and then for the fraction. That first number goes on the top. Now remember, if you put 10 to 4, I would think you're comparing players to girls, not girls to players. And here it is at the bottom, players to girls. So you would just take these numbers, instead of it being 4 to 10, you're now comparing players to girls. So players comes first, so it'd be 10 to 4, 10 colon 4, and then 10 over 4. Okay? So that is the new stuff for today. You're not going to be learning anything other than that for today, okay? We're going to kind of keep it at that and not go any farther. I want you guys to get the language down for this new chapter and really understand what each one of these things means, so that as we move forward, you're not getting confused by not even knowing what that word is, okay? So let's see. Now I want to quickly talk about equivalent ratios. Now equivalent ratios, if you remember, equivalent fractions is a fraction where you've multiplied both the top and the bottom by the same number to make it the numbers larger, but it's still the same fraction. Okay, you've just split it up into more pieces, but the amount of pieces that are shaded are still the same. I should say it takes up the same amount of space. It's just cut into more pieces. So that's, remember, is an equivalent fraction. So I'll show you here. So 2/3. An equivalent fraction would be if we multiply the top and the bottom. Say, you can multiply it times any number. Say 2. So we multiply the top times 2 and the bottom times 2. The equivalent fraction to 2/3 is 4/6. All you're doing is multiplying it out, and it becomes the same thing. And I'll show you what that means. So here is the fraction 2/3. Sorry, that's 1/3. Let me color in one more. I messed that up for you guys. There you go. There's 2/3. An equivalent fraction means we're not going to change what is shaded in. We're not going to change that amount. Otherwise, it's not the same fraction anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to divide each one again into another piece. So we've multiplied both the top and the bottom times 2. So instead of it being divided into thirds, it's going to be divided into 6. So every piece gets divided into 2 more pieces. And now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 6 that are shaded. Remember, I didn't color any more red in. It's still the same amount shaded, just broken up into different pieces. Now you could have multiplied this by 4 and gotten 8 over 12. So if I divide each one of these into more pieces, now I have 8/12 that are shaded. Again, I did not change the amount that is shaded. I just broke it up into more pieces, and that's an equivalent fraction. That's why it's equal. 2/3 is equal to 4/6, because we did not change it. We just broke it up into more. Now you can do that with ratios also. You can change the numbers on there by multiplying both of those numbers by the same number. Just like what we did with the fractions, you can do the same thing with a ratio. So for example, an equivalent ratio to this one, this is 4 to 6. An equivalent ratio would be multiplying both the 4 and the 6 by the same number to change this ratio. And it's going to be the same ratio even though you're changing the numbers, because you're just increasing them by the same value. So let's say we're going to increase it times 3. So we're going to multiply both 4 and the 6 times 3. So if you multiply 4 times 3, you're going to get 12. 6 times 3, you're going to get 18. So an equivalent ratio of 4 to 6 is 12 to 18. It's going to be the same ratio when you break things down. You're just multiplying both things by the exact same number. So you're going to have to create equivalent ratios today also. They're going to give you a ratio, and it could be a fraction. It could be with the colon or the number form. As long as you're multiplying both numbers by the exact same number, it's an equivalent ratio, okay? And you can choose whatever number that you want to multiply both of them by. There is no set number. As long as you're doing the same thing to the top and the bottom, that is an equivalent ratio, okay? Okay, so for your homework today, we are going to be on page 278. We're going to be doing 1 through 4, all of them, 6 through 16 even. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you're going to do in each section. 1 through 4, you're going to use that little table on the side that says number of volcanoes per site. It gives you the state and how many volcanoes are in each state, and you're going to compare them. So number 1 says volcanoes in Washington to volcanoes in California, and you're going to do ratio form. Remember, ratio form is the colon. So you're going to compare Washington volcanoes to California volcanoes by using this colon in the middle. Remember, they ask about Washington first. So Washington's number is going to go here to, comparing it to California. California's volcano number is going to go there, okay? Number 2 says volcanoes in California to volcanoes in Oregon. So you're going to compare volcanoes in California to the volcanoes in Oregon in word form. So number 2, you're going to use word form. So you're going to write the word 2. I did it backwards. Yay. 2 in there. So make sure you follow the directions on whether they want you to do ratio, word, or fraction. And if you get confused and can't remember, right above it, you'll see the table in the green right above your work that will give examples of how to do word, ratio, and fraction form. Okay, so it's in that green box. Numbers 6 through 16, you are going to be doing evens for those. And for 6, you're going to be writing an equivalent ratio in higher terms. So you're going to multiply it by something to get a higher number. So if they have 2 to 3, you're going to say, oh, I'll multiply it by 5. So it's 10 to 15, okay? So that's going up. Now 8 and 10, you're going to write an equivalent fraction going lower. So that means they're going to give you a higher number. Say it's 10 to 15, and you're going to create a lower one. So you're going to divide both those numbers by the same number. So for example, if we're going into a lower equivalent fraction, if they did 10 to 15, they said, okay, now give me an equivalent fraction that's lower. So, okay, well, what number can go into 10 and 15? 5. So an equivalent ratio could be, 2 to 3. I just divided both sides by 5. Okay, so that's how you're moving down. The other one is going up. And then the last couple, you are solving for the missing number. It's algebra in ratios. So they've given you fractions, a fraction form, and you have to solve for that missing end. So you need to know, okay, what did they multiply or divide those numbers by to get the missing number there, okay? Shouldn't be too hard. This should be a repeat from fractions when we did them, okay? If you have any questions, I'll be on all day today. I do have a couple of meetings, but I will try my best to be available to you guys. If you have questions, let me know. I can just send you responses over email, or we can meet if we need to. All right? So, good luck. I will post your assignment and ask if you have questions. Okay? See you later. Have a great day.